And welcome back to The Drive with Jackson and McCoy. Matt McCoy, Stan Jackson with you on this Tuesday afternoon. And we are very pleased to have with us Mr. Hale Irwin, who is going to be the honoree at this year's Memorial Tournament, which is now a month away. This is a guy that has 83 professional wins, a 20-time winner on the PGA Tour, 3-time U.S. Open champ, and yes, 2 times a winner of the Memorial Tournament. And Hale, thanks so much for joining us. I want to start with that. I know you've got a lot of accolades in your career, but to be the Memorial Tournament honoree at Jack Nicklaus's tournament, a tournament you've won a couple of times, when you got that phone call that, hey, we want to honor you next year, what went through your mind, and how big of an honor is this to be the Memorial Tournament honoree next month?
Well, I think answering in reverse, it's a great honor. It's nothing that I ever expected to get. You're always hopeful, but sometimes reality and hope don't quite mesh. But when the call came, I thought it was Jack going to reference something about the Captain's Club, of which I had just been appointed to or asked to be on a year before. So I thought that's what was going to be the phone call. But then when he asked me if I'd be willing to be the honoree, I was taken back for just a moment and kind of got my wits about me and said, of course, it'd be a tremendous honor, which it is. And everything's just been absolutely special. There's been nothing that I could point to that say, boy, they're lacking in that, because every T's been crossed and sentence has a period at the end of it. It's just been a great experience.
You won here in what, 83 and 85,
yes.
I think. And where do those wins, I mean, being Jack Nicklaus's tournament, there's certain tournaments, of course the majors are a separate deal, but other tournaments on tour, we often hear guys talk about this being one that they always circle on your calendar. For you in your career, where do the wins at the Memorial Tournament rank for you?
Well, it was very high, simply because it had the best player that's ever played the game name attached to it. He's a hometown product, created Muirfield Village. Everything was done so exquisitely well. They took care of the competitors. It was fantastic. The only other player, of course, Arnie had his tournament in Bay Hill, and it too was equally well attended by the players. So I think it's more of responding out of respect and admiration for those guys that really set the tone for my career. And I just felt very much at home there. Visiting
with Hale Irwin, the Memorial Tournament honoree this year. In town, actually, today, they had the Legends Luncheon at Ohio State, raised $1.25 million for Nationwide Children's Hospital. The charity aspect of golf, Hale, Jack has obviously done so much in the community with Nationwide Children's Hospital, but the PGA Tour, and I know you're involved with a lot of things. How important is that aspect of the PGA Tour?
It's probably the backbone and foundation of the tour. Aside from the amount of money that Jack has helped raise, there's a more staggering number done by other players when you put the sum total together and what the PGA Tour has been able to help initiate in the communities in which they play. It's a staggering amount of money, more than all other professional sports combined. So I think we have a good product out there. We have a very well-intentioned end goal, which is to help those in need in the various communities in which we play. I
want to ask you about Jack Nicklaus and your relationship with him. First of all, going back to when Jack was in his prime, because people today younger kids may not realize how dominant this guy was. I mean, you look at the record book, 18 majors, and everybody looks at that. But as a player and as a competitor, how intimidating was Jack when he was on his game?
Well, I can't answer to that about other players, but I was never intimidated by Jack Nicklaus. I was thankful simply because he brought the best out in me.
Right.
And I felt that if I was going to be a better player, I had to learn to compete on the same level as Jack. He had a good plan for himself. He geared his years around the major championships and focused on those. He had the luxury of doing that because he was that good. He created enough personal money, if you want to put it that way, to accommodate what else he wanted to do. But for me, it was I loved playing with Jack. I loved playing with the best players because I felt I had something to learn from them, and it was going to make me ultimately a better player. And to that end, I can say there wasn't one round of golf or practice round or otherwise, one meeting that I didn't learn something from Jack. And the best players ever played the game, I think that's what they always did. They had the greatest respect for their fellow competitors, but they wanted to beat them. The only way to beat them was to get better in just about any area, whether it be hitting the golf ball or thinking about management courses or managing your life. They do it better than most others.
The respect that I've always noticed from players and other memorial honorees through the years talking about Jack, and it's not just respect as a player, but respect for Jack as a man. What's your relationship been like with Jack off of the golf course?
Oh, it's been great. Virtually no hesitation in the step. Barbara and my wife Sally get along tremendously. We've had the great fortune of spending a couple of private dinners with them at their home when we've been out on the road, and getting to know them more as people rather than as a name, rather than the dignitaries, rather than being in the pop culture where it's who you know and not what it is that you learn from those people. And I guess that the bottom line is that I've probably learned more about how to be off the golf course as much as I've learned how to be on the golf course. And that ultimately, in the end, that's what is more important to me.
Hale, before I let you go, I just, your impression on the state of the game today. There's so many good young players right now. And, you know, now this year you're starting to see Tiger Woods start to come back and get back into the game. It feels to me like golf has a lot of momentum right now. What about from your perspective?
Well, I think you're right. I don't know many of these younger players well at all. In fact, virtually none of them do I know really, really well. But at the same time, if I made comment on the state of the game, I'd have to say it's in good shape. The only thing that makes me a little bit hesitant is I think we all learn from history. And I'm not sure these kids are learning from history the way, say, my generation did and the generation before. You need to build on the game. You need to build on its successes before it continues success. And we've sort of glamorized the top 10 versus winning because there's so much money in the game. We've got equipment now that lends itself to being a good player versus a fair player in years past. There's so many things that go into the game. It's virtually a different game. It's called the same, but these kids all swing the club pretty much alike versus in the past, from 300 yards, you knew if that was Jack swinging or Lee Trevino swinging or Arnie swinging or whoever it was, you could pick them out 300 yards away. Now, I went to Augusta this year and just sat on the practice tee for almost an hour. And these kids all swing the thing alike. It's good, but it's just a different game now.
You know, it's funny you say that because there have been so many changes to Muirfield Village Golf Course through the years just because you talk about equipment changes and Jack trying to keep up with equipment changes. It is kind of a different game than when you won in 1983 and 85 at Muirfield.
It is. You know, we've got a ball that travels prodigious distances. You've got any number of players, and they don't have to be big in stature. They're small, but they're strong. They hit the gym. They have trainers. They have swing coaches. They have sports psychologists. They have the whole schmear going for them. But in the end, it's not the amount of money that you might win. It's how many tournaments did you win? What tournaments did you win? That'll ultimately prove if you're a great player or not.
Well, Hale, this has been a treat for me. I've been a fan of yours for a long time, and congratulations on being this year's honoree. Thanks so much for taking a few minutes, and we'll catch up with you next month at Muirfield.
Oh, I look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That is Hale Irwin joining us. We'll be back after this. It's The Drive with Jackson McCoy on Sports Radio 105.7, The Zone.